The COVID-19 pandemic, which swept across the globe with unprecedented speed and ferocity, has had far-reaching consequences on all aspects of society. One of the most significant and enduring impacts of this global crisis can be seen in the realm of politics. In this extensive exploration, we will delve into how the pandemic has reshaped governments around the world, transforming policies, structures, and public perceptions. The pandemic unfolded. Governments were faced with an unparalleled challenge, compelling them to reassess their roles, priorities, and strategies. COVID-19 has left an indelible mark on the political landscape, reshaping the way nations are governed and the expectations of their citizens. Governments worldwide had to adapt swiftly to the evolving situation, and one of the primary mechanisms through which they did so was by implementing public health measures. Lockdowns, travel restrictions, social distancing, and mask mandates became common tools to curb the spread of the virus. These measures, often met with resistance and controversy, raised fundamental questions about the balance between individual freedoms and the responsibility of the state to protect public health. The pandemic also highlighted the crucial role of leadership in times of crisis. World leaders were thrust into the spotlight, and their handling of the pandemic became a defining aspect of their tenures. Some leaders received praise for their swift and decisive actions, while others faced criticism for delayed responses and a lack of coordination. The leadership exhibited during the pandemic has had a profound impact on the trust citizens place in their governments. The allocation of resources during the pandemic became a contentious issue. Healthcare systems were stretched to their limits, and governments were forced to make tough decisions about where to direct funding and medical supplies. The pandemic exposed the vulnerabilities in healthcare infrastructure and highlighted the importance of investing in public health. One of the most significant political responses to the pandemic was the development and distribution of vaccines. Governments around the world engaged in an unprecedented race to secure vaccines for their populations. The vaccine rollout became a focal point of political discourse, raising questions about equity in access and the role of pharmaceutical companies in shaping public health policy. Global cooperation in the fight against the pandemic also underwent a transformation. International organizations like the World Health Organization, WHO, played a central role in coordinating the response, but tensions between nations regarding vaccine distribution and the origins of the virus strained diplomatic relations. The pandemic demonstrated both the potential for global cooperation and the limitations of such collaboration. Public trust in government institutions was significantly affected by the way governments handled the pandemic. Transparency, clear communication, and consistent messaging became critical factors in maintaining public trust. Governments that were perceived as handling the crisis effectively saw an increase in public trust, while others faced challenges in regaining the confidence of their citizens. The pandemic also accelerated the adoption of digital technologies in governance. Remote work, virtual meetings, and digital contact tracing tools became the norm. This transition to digital governance raised questions about privacy, data security, and the potential for surveillance. The economic impact of the pandemic cannot be overstated. Governments implemented economic stimulus packages to support businesses and individuals affected by lockdowns and economic downturns. These policies were crucial in preventing widespread financial crises. However, the long-term economic consequences of these measures remain a subject of debate and concern. Elections and democracy faced unique challenges during the pandemic. Several countries postponed elections due to health concerns, while others adapted by implementing mail-in voting and expanding early voting options. The pandemic reignited discussions about the fragility of democratic processes and the need to ensure that citizens can safely exercise their right to vote in times of crisis. The response to the pandemic also brought to the forefront issues related to social inequality. Vulnerable populations, including low-income individuals and communities of color, were disproportionately affected by the virus. The pandemic underscored the need for more equitable healthcare systems and social safety nets. Political polarization played a significant role in the response to the pandemic in many countries. Differences in attitudes toward mask wearing, lockdowns, and vaccines often followed political lines. This polarization raised questions about the ability of governments to unite their populations in times of crisis. The pandemic was not merely a public health crisis, it was also an information crisis. Misinformation and conspiracy theories spread rapidly on social media, challenging governments' abilities to ensure that accurate information reached the public. Governments had to address not only the virus but also the infodemic that accompanied it. The lessons learned from the pandemic will continue to shape the political landscape for years to come. Governments must be prepared for future health crises and must address issues such as healthcare infrastructure, pandemic preparedness, and international cooperation. In conclusion, the COVID-19 pandemic has left an indelible mark on the world of politics. It has forced governments to reassess their roles, resources, and priorities. It has highlighted the importance of strong leadership, public trust, and equitable healthcare systems. The pandemic has also accelerated the adoption of digital technologies and raised questions about issues such as privacy, data security, and the role of misinformation. As the world continues to grapple with the ongoing impacts of the pandemic, the way governments respond to and learn from this crisis will have far-reaching consequences for the future of governance.